I did not expect anything unusual when I first examined the Canada graving dock in Liverpool, officially completed in 1867. The city records were clear: a standard Victorian dry dock designed by engineer Jesse Hartley for the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board, built to service the growing Atlantic trade. What caught my attention was an 1868 construction photograph stored in the Liverpool Maritime Archives. It showed the dock basin mid-completion, revealing stone dimensions far exceeding any vessel in the 1860s merchant fleet. The dock measured over 500 feet long and 100 feet wide, yet the largest ships of the era required barely half that space. A renovation note from 1923 mentions sealing of lower hydraulic chambers, function superseded. On an 18th century atlas nearby, the region appeared within territories labelled Tartaria. Some researchers would later describe infrastructure like this as remnants of Tartarian engineering. At first, I assumed coincidence. I kept looking anyway. The official narrative places Liverpool's graving docks within the tradition of Victorian maritime engineering. The Canada Dock complex was designed to handle the increasing tonnage of transatlantic vessels, cotton ships, grain carriers, and the early steamers that were transforming oceanic trade. Jesse Hartley, the dock engineer who had transformed Liverpool's waterfront since 1824, designed the basin with characteristic granite construction and hydraulic systems for operating the massive dock gates. Period newspapers praised its unprecedented capacity and modern machinery. In the archive, I examined original blueprints dated 1865. The drawings clearly showed the dock dimensions and gate mechanisms, but they ended abruptly at the foundation level. There was no documentation for the elaborate chamber system visible in the construction photographs. A construction photograph from 1867 contradicted the drawings. The excavation revealed stonework extending below the dock floor, vaulted chambers with walls of precisely cut granite that predated the documented construction. The masonry style was different from Hartley's characteristic work, older in appearance, more mathematically uniform, with geometric precision that exceeded Victorian capabilities. Some alternative maritime historians classify such chambers as Tartarian pressure systems, repurposed during the industrial era for hydraulic dock machinery. Mainstream explanations dismiss them as earlier construction remnants. Earlier construction remnants, however, do not explain why the chambers were designed to specifications that match drydocks in St. Petersburg, New York, and ports across 3 continents. The sealed doorway appeared in only one photograph. At the western end of the dock basin, behind the pumping machinery, a bricked-over arch suggested a passage leading deeper into the dock infrastructure. The arch frame was too precisely cut for utilitarian construction, each granite block matching the next, to within millimeters. A renovation permit from 1923 mentions permanent closure of lower works access, hydraulic components discontinued per Harbour Board directive. No reason was given. The doorway proportions troubled me. The opening measured 3.6 meters wide by 4.2 meters tall, dimensions suited for moving heavy equipment or vessels' components, not simple maintenance access. The curvature followed precise geometric ratios that appeared intentional rather than structural. Why engineer such precision into a feature that supposedly served no purpose after 1923? I measured the visible stonework using photogrammetric analysis. The blocks were cut with corner angles precise to less than half a degree. This level of accuracy typically requires modern machining, or methods we no longer understand. The doorway led somewhere. The archive did not say where. Before continuing, I examined the broader pattern. Victorian dry docks were designed to accommodate specific vessel classes. Their dimensions matched the ships of their era. Yet construction photographs from major ports repeatedly show docks built to specifications that exceeded any contemporary vessel by factors of 2 or 3. Why would harbour boards invest enormous resources in infrastructure that could not be utilised? On 18th century maps, the regions containing these oversized docks appeared within or adjacent to territories labelled Tartaria or Great Tartary. Mainstream historians describe this as a cartographic convention. Alternative researchers argue the Tartarian label reflects a lost infrastructure culture whose engineering signatures remained visible in the maritime facilities built above buried systems. I did not know which interpretation was correct, but the pattern, drydocks with undocumented basement chambers designed for vessels that did not exist, was too consistent to dismiss. The docks were built to specifications that exceeded their era, and the chambers beneath them were sealed before anyone could fully investigate what they contained. I expanded my research to other major ports. The Brooklyn Navy Yard in New York, with drydocks dating to the 1850s, revealed similar anomalies. Construction photographs from 1851 show workers excavating the dock basin, uncovering granite chambers beneath the planned floor level that engineers described as of uncertain origin, incorporated into present design. The chambers displayed the same geometric precision, the same oversized proportions, the same sealed passages leading into darkness. An engineer's note from 1853 reads, "Foundation incorporates existing subterranean works of considerable extent. Origin predates available records." Predates available records. The 1850s builders did not create these chambers. They built upon them. The chambers beneath the Brooklyn Navy Yard matched those beneath Liverpool's Canada Dock. Identical geometric proportions, identical granite construction, identical precision machining. Two ports, separated by an ocean and supposedly independent in their development, sharing identical subterranean architecture. The same signature repeated across continents. The deeper I looked, the more I found oversized infrastructure in unexpected places. The Kronstadt naval base near St. Petersburg, with drydocks dating to the 18th century, displays chamber systems that an 1890 survey describes as of extraordinary workmanship, predating documented naval construction. The chambers were not simple foundations. They contained hydraulic conduits and pressure vessels that extended beneath the harbour in patterns that served no visible purpose. A restoration report from 1892 describes the chambers as built to specifications exceeding present requirements by considerable margin. The granite was too precisely cut for any known 18th century methods. The chamber proportions matched Liverpool and Brooklyn measurements exactly. The same dimensions, appearing beneath ports founded centuries apart and separated by thousands of miles. Some Tartarian researchers identify such consistency as evidence of a unified maritime infrastructure, architectural DNA from a civilization that predated the official port builders. The official histories attribute the similarity to engineering tradition. Tradition, however, does not explain identical chamber specifications beneath ports with no documented connection. I spent several evenings studying old maps, those that label vast regions as Tartaria, looking for correlations with port locations. The 1706 Guillaume de Lille map shows a continuous territory marked Grande Tartarie stretching across Eurasia. The 1771 Encyclopaedia Britannica describes Tartary as the greatest empire on the face of the earth. By the mid-19th century, this designation had vanished from cartography. What remained were structures, drydocks, harbours, naval installations, scattered across territories once unified under the Tartarian name. Comparing the oversized dock patterns with the regions labelled Tartaria on old maps revealed unsettling parallels. The ports with subterranean chambers and impossible specifications appeared in Liverpool, New York, St. Petersburg, and harbours across the former Tartarian territories. The distribution matched the former Tartarian boundaries almost exactly. Alternative researchers call this Tartarian maritime infrastructure. I was beginning to understand why. The pattern was becoming impossible to dismiss as coincidence. These ports were built upon older systems, and these systems shared identical engineering DNA. I began comparing drydock specifications systematically. In Portsmouth, the Royal Dockyard, with construction spanning centuries, incorporated chambers that engineers described as of ancient origin, integrated into Georgian expansion. In Hamburg, in Marseille, In ports across the Atlantic and Mediterranean, the same pattern repeated. Major dry docks with subterranean chambers. Chambers older than the docks above them. Precision exceeding documented period capabilities. All these ports appear on 18th century maps within territories labelled Tartaria or adjacent to Tartarian regions. The engineering signatures, granite construction, geometric proportions, hydraulic systems, sealed passages, repeated across national boundaries, across supposed construction eras, across official narratives that claimed no connection existed. The dry docks were designed for vessels that didn't exist in their documented eras. The chambers beneath them were sealed during modernization. What purpose both originally served remains undocumented. The most troubling discovery emerged when I examined the hydraulic systems documented in renovation records. A 1925 survey of Liverpool's Canada dock describes extensive hydraulic infrastructure beneath dock floor, of capacity exceeding present machinery requirements by factor of 4. The systems included pressure vessels, conduit networks, and valve mechanisms that extended far beyond the dock boundaries. A Harbour Board report from that year notes, hydraulic power core of unknown function discovered during renovation. System predates documented dock construction. Sealed per board directive. Sealed. Not studied, not preserved. Sealed. The hydraulic systems were not the primitive steam-powered pumps that Victorian engineers used for dock operations. They were pressure-regulated networks of a complexity that suggested purposes beyond simple water management. Some Tartarian researchers argue these systems powered operations we no longer understand: vessel construction, cargo handling, or functions lost to history. The official record describes Victorian dock machinery. The photographs show something older beneath it. Renovation records from 1900 to 1940 repeat the same phrases across ports worldwide. Lower chambers sealed per harbour directive. Hydraulic systems discontinued. Subterranean works filled with concrete. No diagrams survive for most sealed chambers. No photographs document what was removed. The erasure was systematic, not a conspiracy, but a modernization pattern. Engineers encountered systems they no longer understood, and the simplest solution was closure. A 1930 maritime engineering report describes the discovery of extensive underground works beneath multiple dock facilities of pre-industrial origin and uncertain function. The chambers connected dock basins to structures across port complexes, forming what appeared to be unified systems. The report recommended sealing all access points to prevent structural interference with modern operations. By 1950, most major ports had closed access to their subterranean chambers entirely. The systems, whatever their purpose, were erased from operational history. Only the photographs remain, and the photographs show precision that the official timeline cannot explain. By now, I had identified a repeating pattern across dozens of ports. Dry docks built to specifications exceeding contemporary vessels, subterranean chambers predating official construction, hydraulic systems of impossible complexity, and systematic sealing during the early 20th century. The pattern appeared in Liverpool, New York, St. Petersburg, Portsmouth, Hamburg, and ports across the former Tartarian territories. Alternative researchers call this the Tartarian maritime signature, evidence of a unified shipbuilding infrastructure, built by a civilization that mainstream history does not acknowledge, then repurposed for Victorian industry, and finally sealed when their original function became incomprehensible. I cannot prove this theory, but I can document the pattern. Docks larger than their era required, chambers older than the ports above them, precision beyond period capabilities, systematic erasure that closed access before anyone could fully investigate. The docks still operate. What they were originally built for may have been sealed away decades ago. The most troubling observation was the scale disparity. Victorian shipbuilders designed for vessels of 200 to 300 feet. The dry docks they supposedly constructed measured 500 to 600 feet. Either engineers across multiple continents independently decided to build infrastructure twice the size required, at enormous expense, or they built upon foundations designed for vessels we have no record of. Some Tartarian researchers suggest these dry docks were designed for vessel classes that no longer exist, ships of a scale that required the oversized infrastructure now dismissed as Victorian overbuilding. The official histories describe ambitious engineers planning for future growth. But the chambers beneath these docks, the hydraulic systems, the sealed passages, the geometric precision, suggest something more than optimistic planning. They suggest inheritance. The truth may lie somewhere between official history and alternative theory, or beneath the water that still floods these ancient basins. I return to Liverpool's Canada dock one final time. The sealed doorway is no longer visible, buried beneath modern port infrastructure. A dock supervisor told me that workers occasionally encounter old granite walls during maintenance, walls that no blueprint acknowledges. "We don't investigate," he said. "We just work around them." The photograph from 1868 remains in the archive, a doorway leading somewhere the records do not acknowledge, framed by stonework too precise for its supposed era, sealed and forgotten for over a century. Whatever purpose that passage served, whatever system it connected to, whatever civilization designed it, all remain buried beneath the modern port. The Tartarian hypothesis offers one explanation. The official history offers silence. Neither fully accounts for what the photographs show. The investigation ends not with certainty, but with quiet reflection. In the archives, a final photograph lingers. The 1868 image of the oversized dry dock basin, its granite walls impossibly precise, its chambers leading into sealed darkness. The official record says the dock was constructed in 1867. The photograph shows something older beneath it. The renovation logs describe sealing, filling, closing access. What those chambers contained was never documented. What connected to those hydraulic systems was never mapped. Across Liverpool, across the Atlantic, across regions once labelled Tartaria, the same pattern repeats. Shipyards with dry docks too large for known vessels, chambers sealed during modernization, hydraulic systems removed without explanation. The evidence does not prove a lost civilization existed, but it documents something the official histories cannot explain. A layer beneath the Victorian ports, built with precision beyond documented capabilities, designed for a maritime scale we have no record of. The chambers in the photograph remain sealed. Whatever truth those dry docks held has been buried for over a century. And like much of what researchers call Tartarian infrastructure, it lingers as a trace rather than a conclusion, impossible to investigate, impossible to ignore. I return to the 1868 photograph one final time. The dry dock basin stretches beyond the frame, its granite walls perfectly aligned, too perfect for the era, too large for any vessel that sailed in 1867. The dock above was officially completed that year. The chambers beneath were sealed in 1923. In the century since, no one has recorded what lies behind those bricked-over passages. The official history describes Victorian engineering. The photograph shows something older, something connected to other ports across continents, something built for vessels we have no record of. And somewhere beneath Liverpool's waterfront, beneath the modern cargo operations, beneath layers of concrete and forgetting, the chambers wait, still sealed, still unexplained, still holding whatever truth the 20th century chose to close away rather than understand.